Hello everyone, this is Marcos speaking. At the end of this video, you will have a REST API made using NestJS that interacts with OpenAI models like ChatGPT programmatically, so you can make your own customizations and to leverage your own applications to do whatever you need using the models powered by OpenAI. So we can do things like this. For example, I'm asking, who is your favorite Superman? And then the model tells me, let's say, what he says. He says that my favorite Superman is Henry Cavill, who played the role of Man of Steel. And then you can do things like this. Let's say, for example, translate hello self-prefecture to German. Oh, look at this. I'm not a very good German speaker, but this is it, I guess, at least. Or we can do another things like, give me a basic HTML script. Let's see. Perfect. So this is it. At the end of the video, you will have an application like this that can interact with AI models by text, just like ChatGPT and the models provided by OpenAI. But before we proceed, if you like this kind of content, just give a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel so you can see more videos like this. And don't forget about it, the more you learn, the better you become and more value you can provide. So let's do this. Okay, perfect. So let's keep going. First of all, the first thing that we need to do, you must go into openai.com, this website, and then go into API, and then go to login if you already have an account. If you don't have an account, click to sign up, and then you fill the process, but you can continue with Google or Microsoft account as well. And then you fill the steps that they require. They're gonna ask you to provide an organization. If you don't have an organization, just put your name there and then fill out the extra steps. After doing this, you have an account like this. I'm going to log into my account. Okay, perfect. So here I am into my account. So there are some basic things that here that you must be aware of. So let's go into my account here. I'm going to manage account. Here you can see the usage. So when you create an account on OpenAPI, they give to you some free trial usage. Basically, they give to you like $18 to spend on their applications, on their APIs. So the more requests you make to their APIs, you're gonna spend the credits that they give to you. And then if you spend the whole thing, you have to buy more. But you see that I've made some tests here, and then I only spent 3 cents by my test. I didn't test the application that much, but this is what I've got so far after a few hours by experimenting the API. And then you also must go into your user section and then go into API keys. So here it is, my key. You're going to need this for communicating with the API. If you don't have a key, you must click into create new secret key, and then they're going to provide you the key. So pay attention to this. When you create a key, you must copy the key and paste it somewhere else and then save it, because you won't be able to access the key again in the future. So if you lose the key, you have to create a new one and delete the previous key that you created before, because you won't be able to see your key again. So make sure that whenever you create a new key, copy the key and save it somewhere else so you won't lose it. Okay, that's it. Let's keep going. So let's go into the overview, go into the documentation, and then go into the API reference. So this is the library that you must install on your application for keep going. So now let's go into the code side. Now that we already have the OpenAI account, let's go into the code side. Okay, perfect. So here I'm going to create a new folder. Just start the project. I'm gonna open up this folder on the terminal. Okay, perfect. So now I'm gonna start a new NestJS project. I'm gonna do it. Nest new. I'm gonna call it ChatGPT OpenAI REST API. You can call it whatever you want. This is the random name that came into my mind, and then keep going. I like to use yarn. Okay, perfect. After a few minutes, the basic setup for the project is complete. So let's open up. So I'm going to the project folder. I'm going to open up the project on VS Code. Okay, perfect. So this is basically a simple application created by NestJS. Here I have the bootstrap file, the main file that bootstraps the application. We have the basic module, and that's it. So the first thing that we need to do is to create the module that's going to hold the code for communicating with OpenAI models. So let's do this. I'm gonna open up the terminal. I'm gonna create a new module with NestJS. NestG module. I'm gonna call it ChatGPT. I'm gonna call it this. Okay, perfect. This is the new module with a basic module here. Let's create the controller layer. NestG controller. Perfect. Now let's create the service layer. Service. Perfect. So this is the basic structure that we need for configuring our project. We need basically a controller layer and then a service layer. Okay, great. So here I am going to inject the service inside the controller. Private read-only service, which is going to be the ChatGPT AI service. Perfect. So now I'm going to do a few things. First of all, I'm going to create a .env file, which is going to hold some secrets for our project. I'm gonna call it .env. Perfect. So here we're going to put our credentials for the project to communicate with the OpenAI API. Okay, perfect. So for doing this, for reading the .env file, we need to install some libraries from NestJS. NestEnv file. We need this library from NestJS. The NestJS config. Copy. Go back to the project. I'm going to install this yarn add and this library. Perfect. Now let's put it here. Just follow the documentation here. Since we're using the default structure for the .env file on the root folder, then we don't need to extend the configurations for making it work. Just call the config module here, config module for root. Okay, perfect. So now let's take the environment variables that we need. Let's go back to OpenAI. Let's go into your account, view API keys. You have to make sure this. If you already lost your token, then you have to create a new one and then delete the old one. But since I already have my one saved into a file, I'm gonna paste it here. So this is my token provided by OpenAI. Besides this, you also need something else. You need your organization ID. So for seeing this information, you can go into the settings and on the left side, and then this is it. Just copy this and paste it on your .env file. I'm gonna call it organization ID. Perfect. So this is it. Now let's go back to the code. Let's install the OpenAI package. Go back to the documentation, to the API reference, and then copy the library name. Install it here, yarn add OpenAI. Perfect. Now let's go into the service layer, and then let's set up our service layer. First of all, we need some libraries provided by OpenAI. You can follow this documentation here. Copy, then go back to the code. And then we need this configuration. I'm gonna do this on the constructor. Okay, perfect. So the organization, I'm going to read it from the .env file, process.env organization ID, which is the environment variable name that we define on the .env file, and this is the other one for the API key. Okay, perfect. And now let's define the other objects for running the OpenAI library. Const OpenAI. Perfect. Actually, I'm going to define this as a class object. So private read only OpenAI API, which is going to be this type, and then here I'm going to do this dot OpenAI API gets this object, then the OpenAI API object. Perfect. So now let's start doing the interesting stuff. Let's define a method for receiving the user prompt message. I'm gonna say async get model answer, and the question will be a string. Okay, perfect. Now we need to pass some extra information to make the model to work properly. Okay, I mean, since this is a call to an external service, I'm gonna wrap it with a try-catch block, and then we need to define some parameters. Const params. So the definition for it comes from OpenAI, which is this create completion request, and this parameters object is going to be from this definition. If you want, you can read the parameters and the definition for each parameter that they request. But basically we need to pass the prompt, which is the question that the user input. We also need to pass the model ID. So here you can experiment different models. I'm gonna show to you how you can experiment different models, and then you'll see which one works best for you. Or you can change it dynamically, just like we're going to do in the next section. But by default, I'm gonna pass this model as a default one. So for now, we're going to use this text DaVinci 003 for running the application. But then you can actually change the models and try to see which one works best for you. Default model ID, I'm gonna pass this ID, this model ID, as the model for running the application. There's another attribute which is interesting for you to pass, which is called temperature. Temperature, which is a number that goes from 0 to 1. So the closer to 1, it would be more random, the answer, and more dynamic, and the closer to 0 will be more deterministic, so the model will give to you more repetitive answers, and if you pass the number closer to 1, it's going to give to you more random answers, and will look more similar to a human answer. So temperature, I'm gonna say in this case that if the user defines the temperature, then user, actually this is a falsie, so let's check if it's actually undefined. If it's not undefined, then you pass the temperature. Otherwise, I'm gonna pass a default value, default temperature. In my case, I want a more random answer, closer to a human answer, so I'm gonna pass 0.9. Okay, perfect. And then let's treat the answer. Let's make the call using the OpenAI library and get the answer from the AI model. So the response is is going to be wait this dot OpenAI API dot create completion, and then we pass the parameters object. Okay, perfect. And then if you want to see the straight answer, you can do this: return response dot data. Actually, this is an access response object, so for returning the actual data we need to do the response dot data. This is the actual object provided by the model. Okay, this is it basically. Now let's make some changes on the controller layer for us to be able to interact with this function. Let's go into the controller layer, this one, and let's create a method here. I'm going to do get model answer. Okay, perfect. For convenience, I'm gonna pass this as a post method, so we don't need to parse the string from the URL. We just read it from the body. I'm gonna say this is a post method, so I'm gonna pass the route will be slash message, and then we need to define the object body. I'm gonna create a folder here called model, and here I'm gonna create a file called get AI model answer. The file name, I'm gonna export a class get AI model answer. So this is the request object that we're going to pass to the code. For now, I just need one attribute, which is the question, which is going to be a string. Okay, perfect. And then I'm gonna pass this as a body here. So this is going to be at body. This is the data, which is the type get AI model answer. Perfect. And then what we're going to do, we're going to return the service output. Service get model answer. I'm going to pass the data dot question. Okay, perfect. So let's try to run this code. I'm gonna start the NestJS application in the development mode. Okay, great. Now let's open up Postman to interact with this application. And open up new route here. I'm gonna do http colon / the application is running on the port 3000 / the route here is ChatGPT AI / message. Okay, perfect. And this is a post method, so let's switch here to post, and then let's define the body, because we are reading the information from the user from the body, and this is the structure that we need to pass. So basically an attribute called question. Here let's switch to JSON, and then let's pass the question attribute, and here we can pass whatever we want. I'm gonna ask, who is your favorite Batman? Let's see what's gonna happen. And let's click to send. Okay, perfect. Look at this. This is the model answer. He said that my favorite Batman is Christian Bale, who famously played the role of Bruce. If you don't want to return all of this, if you only want to return the output itself, so let's make some changes to the return. Let's make some tests here. I'm going to the structure, the response. If we have the data.choices, then return only the choices object. Data.choices. Okay, perfect. Let's try again. Okay, great. You see that this time he gave me the same answer, but the output was slightly different compared to the previous time. And that's pretty much it. Now I have a REST API which is able to communicate with the OpenAI models by text, so we can leverage whatever you want here. But let's make some extra customizations. So if you check the OpenAI object, you will see that they have lots of different models. So we can switch to different models to see which one works best for you. So I'm gonna create here a variable called private selected model ID, and then we can switch between models. It can be undefined as well, undefined. So here, if the user selected a model, then we choose the model selected by the user. Otherwise, we choose the default model. Okay, great. Let's create a method here. Just set the method set model ID. The model ID, which is going to be a string. This dot model ID. Select the model ID, gets the model ID. Okay, perfect. Besides this, we need a way to see the existing model IDs. We can do it this way: list async list models, and then we can do this. And then we return the models.data, because this is an Axos wrapper, just like the other object. Then return the models.data. Okay, let's go back to the controller. Let's create another method here. This case is going to be a get list models. So it's going to be at get. The route will be /model, and then we return the this.service.list models. Okay, perfect. Let's test it out. So if we create another request here, let's switch this to model and to be a get. Yes, let's see. Okay, perfect. So these are the models that we can try with your application. You have the Babbage, you have the Ada, and so on. But you need to make sure about something. For some cases, for example, they have this text dash Babbage column 001. For some reason, you have to switch this column to another dash. So if you want to read this ID and pass it to the ID on the service layer class for being updated dynamically, so you need to do something like this. Go back here. So if the model ID loads a column, then we need to replace this to a dash, at least based on the experience that I've done previously. Okay, perfect. So now let's create a method to set the model ID dynamically so we can keep switching while we're testing. So let's do this. I'm gonna say that this is a post as well. I'm gonna create a new file here. Set selected model.ts. So let's create a class here. Sport class. Set selected model. I'm going to ask for the model ID, which is a string. Let's go back to the controller. Set model. Okay. This is going to be a post on the slash model, and let's read the body. The data is going to be the set selected model, and then what we're going to do here, we're basically going to do the this.service.set model ID, and then we pass the data.model ID. Okay, perfect. This way we can switch between different models and see the different outputs provided by different models, and then you choose the one that gives to you the better outputs for your specific case. Or we can also pass the model directly on the request along with the question, like this, for example, model ID, which is a string, and we can also pass the temperature, which is a number. Besides this, if you want to validate this structure, we can install yarn add class transformer and class validator. Okay, perfect. So now let's add some validators so we can check the object structure before injecting the object into the controller in the service layer. So we know that the question is a string, it is not empty. Besides this, we know that the model ID is a string as well, but this one is optional. And we know that the temperature is a number, and it is optional as well. So we can validate the object structure before sending to the controller. But for making this to work, we need to pass a pipe here. Let's do it. We're going to do the use pipes decorator from NestJS, and then we pass the validation pipe, and the same for the other post method. Okay, perfect. So now if we try to pass a different structure, it's not going to allow. Let's see, for example, let's say that I don't pass the question and run the server again, yarn start def. So let's pass an empty object. Let's see what's gonna happen. Okay, perfect. You see that the validator is working. It didn't allow to pass an empty object into the application. Let's put it back. Okay, so on the controller layer, we can actually change this get model answer to receive the get AI model answer object instead of passing only the string. So let's do this. I'm gonna change this to be the params, which is going to be the get AI model answer. And then here we can actually, oh sorry, there's going to be a conflict. Impute, I'm gonna call it impute. So here we can read the object, impute dot question, or we can destructure the object to make it more simple. We need the question, we need the temperature, and the model ID. The question. So for checking this, we need some logic here. So the temperature we were reading here. So let's make some extra check for the model. Let model by default is going to be the default model ID. If the user selected the model inside the request, we're going to use this model. Or if the user already selected the model for the class, then we read this one. It's going to be the this dot model ID, selected model ID, and then we pass this attribute here. Okay, perfect. This is it. And then we need to change the controller layer to pass the data directly instead of only the question. Okay, perfect. So now you can switch between different models and just see the output that each one of them provide. So if you want to pass, for example, a different model, let me check the attribute again. It's going to be model ID. Okay, perfect. So if you want to switch to another model, like for example, text Babbage. Oh yeah, we need to check the column for not breaking the application, otherwise this is gonna break because of the column. So back to the controller to start the service. I'm gonna create a method called clean model name model ID. Actually model ID, not model name. Which is a string. And then we pass this logic to this function. If it includes the column, then we return this. Otherwise, it returns the original model ID. Can even be a static method if you prefer, but I'm gonna keep this way. Okay, perfect. So now we do the same here for passing the model, but then we need to make some changes here. This dot clean model ID, then we pass the model. Okay, perfect. Otherwise, your application could crash because of the column. So I'm gonna pass this one to the method as the model ID. Let's see. So you see that this method gave me this answer. My favorite Batman is Batman because he's the perfect balance of cool and something else. Oh yeah, if this happens to you, because by default it's returning a small text, so we can extend the output length as well by passing another attribute here, for example, which is the maximum tokens. I'm gonna pass another default value here, default maximum tokens. I'm gonna pass 2048 by default. You can read the documentation to see more about these attributes and the other ones that the application provides. Maximum tokens. And if you want to read from the request as well, we can do it. Maximum tokens, which is a number and it's optional. Okay, perfect. And then if the user passed this information, we can destructure it here. Oh, there's a typo here. Let me fix it. Default. If the user passed the maximum tokens, then you use the value provided by the user, otherwise you pass the default value. Okay, perfect. Let's try again. Oh, what happened? Oh, this case did not provide me the answer. So that's pretty much it. After doing the previous experiment, something went wrong with the model that I chose previously. But then if I choose the default model, it works pretty well. So you have to make some experiments to see what's the model that works best for you. But I think this is one of the most modern models that they provide. So probably this is one of the ones that which is going to give to you one of the best answers. So it's up to you to make some experiments and to see what works best for you. So if you have any doubt, just make me a question in the comment section. If you like this kind of video, just give a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. And besides this, if you want to see how to deploy this application into AWS, I have another videos explaining how you can deploy this code into Elastic Beanstalk using the NodeJS approach, or if you want to Dockerize this application and upload a Docker application to Elastic Beanstalk, I also have a video explaining how to do it. And if you like this kind of content, just give me a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. And don't forget about it. The more you learn, the better you become and more value you can provide. I hope you liked it, and I see you in the next time.